Jedadiah woke up to the usual tapping on his front door. He rose from his bed and swung his long legs off, not wanting to wake up the missus. Upon sitting up, the bedroom window loomed before him. It was a gloomy day in September, almost looked like it was going to snow. He chuckled as he stood up in his long johns and took a decent look, ignoring the tapping, which had turned into a knock. The hilly grasslands waved at him. Sure was windy, he thought. A storm was definitely a brewing outside. The apple trees, too, swayed, fruit falling off. He finally blinked the sleep out of his eyes and tuned his ears to the now pounding front door. Best alarm clock he never intended to install. Unhurriedly, he strode across the wooden boards of the bedroom to his sleeping wife, who had pulled the blankets over her head. He ruffled her scalp and kissed her. She let out a loving growl, saying, "Answer the damn door already." Again he chuckled as he slid on his slippers and stepped out of the bedroom and into the hallway. They had a somewhat quiet life in western Appalachia, albeit unusual from city life many would be used to in the greater United States. But Jedadiah, his wife, and their kin loved it. It was a refuge away from the three bigs: big government, big tech, and big pharma. I'm coming, said Jedediah. He holstered his sawed-off shotgun into his side holster and grabbed a couple special buckshot he received from one of his neighbors, placing them into his breast pocket. He wrapped his shoulder holster with two .45s buckled inside over his pajamas and proceeded to make some coffee. "We do this every damn morning, Jamie," muttered Jedediah, scooping the coffee and putting it in the filter. "Is it possible you can just go back home without a long-winded story?" The pounding stopped as soon as Jedediah opened his mouth, and then an eerie silence hung as Jedediah continued the coffee preparation, pouring water into the machine and pressing the start button. He listened to it whir and steam before Jamie finally said something. "Please, sir, my sister and I are lost and need to use your telephone. Please, we need your help." Jedediah shook his head. "Jamie, is your sister actually with you today, or are you fibbing again?" Silence. "Please, sir, we need your help." The pounding began again. It sounded like a boot against the bottom of the door this time. Jedediah pulled out his shotgun and loaded the two barrels. "Jamie," said Jedediah, impatience growing, "every morning you pound on my door, and every morning I hand you my cell phone, and every morning you don't remember your parents' number." He pulled out his old flip phone that was charging on the kitchen counter and stuck it in his pocket before opening the door to Jamie and his sister. Jamie and his sister, who typically didn't show up, stood in the entryway, white as ghosts and their eyes black as coal. No pupils, just a pool of black. Jedediah held his shotgun at the ready, and he pushed them towards the porch stairs so he could close the door behind him. He pulled out his cell phone and tried to hand it to Jamie. Jamie just looked at it puzzled. "Look, Jamie, it's a phone. I've showed you this before, remember?" Jamie didn't lift his hand to take it. He just stared at it, and then at Jedediah. "I need to use your phone. We are lost. Let us come in." Jedediah looked down his porch to see a familiar hag he would see on occasion, counting the bristles on his broom that he had hanging on the corner of his wraparound porch. "Good morning, Miss Macy. Any telling how many bristles are on that broom there?" said Jedediah, smiling, as he took a seat in his rocking chair, the black-eyed children still staring at him.
"Oh, drat!" Miss Macy shouted. "There are so many, Jedediah! So many! How is one to count so when one can't remember which one has already been counted?"
He watched as she pulled at the bristles with her clawed hands and pulled them by one, counting and ultimately losing some as she pulled a new one out. "Well," said Jedediah, "keep trying, I guess." She shushed him, and as he turned back to the children, who stood menacing him as he rocked in the chair. "Well," said Jedediah, "you want to use my phone or not?" Again, he tried to hand them the phone, only for them to stare at him with their dark eyes, unblinking. There was a time when Jed would have been unnerved by that. But he was over 60 and had seen plenty more in the woods around his property that he wasn't going to be intimidated by some lackluster kids. They didn't take the phone. They just lingered for a while as Jedediah rocked in his chair. Eventually, they left without a sound. Where? Jed never knew. "Finally," he said, and like clockwork, he heard the coffee maker steam and finish. He rose up and got his first cup of coffee for the morning, and then figured out his plans for collecting the apples. Maybe Miss Macy would help him count. He laughed as he turned his head in her direction.
Damn it, Jedediah, quit distracting me.
He watched her start all over again, shaking his head and sipping that fine, dark roast.